How's it going, everybody? I am here to talk about the Spyder MR1, in particular the rear assembly with the bolt, hammer, and spring assembly. I am by no means a paintball marker expert. I don't claim to be, but I do know a few things about this gun. I've owned it for about a year and a half now, and I've taken it apart and maintained it and cleaned it very well. It works very well. It's a great gun. So let's get started. Of course, you're going to want to make sure that the marker is degassed and free of paint before you work on it. So we're good. I'm going to remove the barrel. And there's your marker in a hole. Here it is. First thing I'm going to do is put my thumb on the velocity adjuster in the back, and this comes with a quick release pin. I'm going to push on the one side and pull out, pops right out, and your velocity adjuster comes right out. Right on behind that is a spring. It's a velocity spring that comes out there. Now, one of the questions I've had recently is, how do I line up the bolt with the hammer once I've had problems with it, taking it apart, putting it back together, whatever it may be. So let's say, for the sake of things, that my hammer is not lined up. So I'm going to remove my cocking handle from the top here. Pops right out. And if I tilt the gun backwards now, the bolt is going to fall right out. There's your bolt. Set that aside. Now you have your hammer in this marker is engaged by the trigger. So in order to get the hammer out, I'm going to have to take off the trigger assembly. Very easy. Your Spyder MR1 comes with 2 Allen wrenches. One's black, one's silver. You can use both these wrenches to take apart the gun completely. That's all you need. I also have a small screwdriver just to assist me in things that my fingers can't reach. So, take the marker, turn it upside down, and there is a bolt here and a bolt here. They hold the trigger assembly on. I'm going to take my silver Allen wrench and I'm going to loosen them both. And we're just going to loosen them up. This takes a minute. There's not a whole lot of room down here. Okay, there's one. Okay, now once you do this, take your other bolt out. Once you do this, don't mess with any of the hoses up here or the ASA adapter. Just leave it attached right to the handle. If you flip your marker upside down, that's going to fall down. So there you have. Here is your rear of the marker now and your front of the marker. Your hammer now, with a couple small taps, will come right out. There's a rubber thing. This is your hammer. It has a red O-ring on it, and this velocity spring fits inside that in the rear. The bottom of this has this small spot here. That's what engages the trigger. The top of it has this hole. This hole is what lines up with the hole on the bolt, which makes your gun work. So here, when these are inside the marker, this is what it's going to look like. Your hole here is going to line up with your hole here. So there's your 2 holes lined up, and your cocking handle drops down, and that's essentially what it looks like inside your marker. It moves back and forth when you fire it, just like that. Now, the problems you're probably having to line it up is that your ring and your hole in the bottom here in the hammer is twisted, so you can't. It's not lining up. It's either this way or it's this way. It's not working. So back to the marker here. Your hammer is going to go in with the O-ring first and the coned end in the rear with the slot in the bottom. This slot here is going to be in the bottom, which engages the trigger. The hole needs to be in the top. It goes in the bottom hole here. So we're going to slide that back in very carefully, making sure you don't move it, because you're going to want to line that hole up. So slide it in, and if you look down inside the slot right here in the gun, you should still be able to see the hole. Don't push in so far that you can't see it. Okay? Then we're going to put this rubber thick O-ring just right inside the bottom hole. You don't need to push it in far, just put it right in there. And we are going to now turn the gun over and put the trigger assembly back on the gun. And the 2 bolts you had before, 2 screws, need to go back in there. You need to take your, once again, your silver Allen wrench, and you're just gonna tighten them down. All the screws in this gun come with like a lock nut on them. You don't need to tighten these down very far. You know, they need to be snug, and that's about it. Later this week, I will be doing a complete teardown rebuild of this marker. If you know, you're interested in seeing that, go ahead and subscribe. Just tightening down these 2 screws here. Okay, there's your marker again, back the way it was before, with the hammer in place the way you want it. Now, you take your bolt, which is this, and you're going to put it back in the marker. Go ahead and wipe it off. If you need to, re-lubricate the O-rings on it, and possibly the front area here. This is where the most contact takes place on this, against the marker. Now, this bolt has a hole right here, in the middle section between the 2 O-rings. This hole needs to point down towards the trigger assembly, and these holes in the back, this one hole in the back, is what lines up with your hammer. So, your marker, your bolt, slide back in like this. Okay, and I'm going to take my small screwdriver and line the holes up. There they are. Now, remove it. And your cocking handle goes back in. There, perfect. You might have to fidget with it just a little bit, back and forth. But mine seemed to go in pretty good. And then you take the spring and put it in the middle of the rubber ring in there. Make sure the spring depresses all the way down inside the hammer. In there, there's a little hole in the back of the hammer. And the velocity adjuster goes in the back. Push it in with your thumb. Get your quick release pin. Put it inside. There, and your marker is put back together. Test it out. Make sure that it fires. If you have some CO2 or high pressure sitting around, go ahead and hook it up. Dry fire it a couple times. Not too much because it's not very good for it, but that's pretty much it. Like I said, later this week I'll be doing a complete teardown rebuild of this gun. I've done it several times. It's fairly easy. That's it. If you have any other questions, feel free to message me. Thanks.